and just welcome everybody. I am, so excited to be speaking with you. Um, feel free to minimize all the guests if you like, so you can see the slides. But as Roshan said, my name is Russell, and I am the Director of International Enrollment at Duke Kunshan University. And I am just so excited to be talking with you. I visited Kazakhstan for the first time about 2 to 3 years ago. And just ever since, I've been amazed at the people that I've met, how friendly they are, and certainly the quality of the students, the applications we've been getting. And for those of you who jumped on a little bit in the last couple minutes, I'm just so excited to be continuing to grow our Kazakh community at Duke Kunshan University. So today's presentation is really focused on our university, Duke Kunshan University. Hopefully some of you were able to attend the long session I did a month or so ago, I believe, where I did a session on just the common application in general. So I'll touch on some application today, but mostly I'll focus on the program. I'll of course talk about financial aid. I know that's very important to many of our students, not just in Kazakhstan, but especially in today's climate with all that's going on in the world. There's been a lot of economic upheaval and disruption. And so, I know, how do you finance your college education is certainly something I know that's important, and it has been, and it will continue to be. And then I'll talk about, our application a little bit and what we look for in the ideal students, and kind of to turn that in another direction, what type of students are attracted to Duke Kunshan University. To start kind of on that note, we definitely attract students who want to make an impact in their careers and in their lives. And it doesn't mean they're going to be the one who goes out and saves the world and discovers the vaccine for COVID-19. What it means is we attract students who care about things, and they can be on a very small scale, they can be on a very large scale, and anywhere in between. But these students, they have things they care about, and they want to make that difference, whether it's in their organization, in their community, in their home, whatever that is. But these are the students who are attracted to Duke Kunshan. And I'm going to talk a lot about what attracts them over the next several slides. But as you know, this world we are living in today, oh my gosh, the history books will look back at 2020 as the time the world really had a monumental change. With the COVID-19, certainly the pandemic, that is just having such an impact everywhere in the world, everywhere. No one is escaping this. And if you're looking at the news right now, you know that the US, where I am currently located, is experiencing some pretty significant racial issues, and even that is spreading to other parts of the world. So this is a decade potentially that is changing the course of the way we're going to live. And our mission at Duke Kunshan is to prepare students to be impactful and lead in that world, lead in a world of uncertainty, be able to make decisions without having all of the information. When I talk about our curriculum and our interdisciplinary curriculum, it's really easy to illustrate the value of it, just using this current pandemic as an example. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well, so you'll understand our unique curriculum. So just to get going on Duke Kunshan University, it's global. As you heard me mention earlier, we're attracting students from all around the world. And it is for students who want to make that difference in the world. We are a research-oriented liberal arts and sciences university. And we actually believe research is a really important part of the university experience. That's pretty unusual for a lot of universities, particularly in the US, that even freshmen are able to work with faculty on real research. We've had students already who have published research. So that's a really cool part, and we really encourage our students to take advantage of that. What do we mean by liberal arts and sciences. We have majors that span different areas, and I'll talk more about that as well. And, you know, we're very new, right? So we launched in 2014. We started with graduate programs, and then we launched our undergraduate program 2 years ago. We're launching our third class this coming fall. So I am talking to you as potential members of our fourth class. But you know, we are innovative. And as I mentioned, we have an interdisciplinary curriculum, which our students who come to us, they like that curriculum because they say it's practical, that it connects the dots. And we take a very global approach to to just education. I really do believe that even before the pandemic, you know, the educational landscape was changing. People were rethinking about education, and how to pursue education. Is a 4 years, you know, experience even a requirement any longer? And what does that look like? All of these things are going to be changing over the next several years. But even before the pandemic, you know, we at Duke Kunshan knew that the landscape was changing, and we wanted to be at the forefront of that global education and approach. We also put a lot of value on experiential, and what we mean, that's like research, get working in the community, working on projects. Experiential means our students learn by doing, not just by sitting in the classroom. But to understand who Duke Kunshan is, you really have to understand who Duke University is. So Duke University is an elite university in the United States, very prestigious, you know, consistently ranked in the top 10, top 8 of all the universities in the United States, right up there with the Ivy Leagues, in front of some of the Ivy Leagues, and of course behind some of the Ivy Leagues, but right in there. So a very highly regarded university. Why is this important? Because Duke University launched Duke Kunshan University. For Duke to be able to come into China like it did, it had to partner with another university in China, and that university is called Wuhan University, and that's an elite university in Wuhan. Some of you may have heard of Wuhan. That's where many people say that the pandemic initially started. But beyond just that, obviously there's an elite university in that city, Wuhan University. And so, but everything academic wise is driven by Duke University. What Wuhan University does is it allows us to actually have a university in China, because you have to have an academic partner. But everything, the faculty are hired by Duke, the curriculum designed by Duke, and the degrees you earn. Our students earn 2 degrees. They earn a Duke University degree when they graduate, the same degree that students at Duke earn, and they earn the Duke Kunshan University degree, which is accredited by the Chinese Ministry of Education. Students at Duke Kunshan University have the opportunity to go study at Duke University in their junior year for up to a semester and a summer. So they get to experience their education both in China and in the US, 2 of the most impactful economies in the world. And then as a graduate, you are a member of 2 alumni networks. And we were talking about networking earlier, and the value of that networking. I'm going to use a business term. I worked at the business school at Duke University for 11 years before I transitioned to Duke Kunshan University. And one of the most critical skills you can have as somebody who works in business is networking, or as I like to call it, relationship management. But you probably know it more well as networking. And Duke University, of which you are an alumnus, if you graduate from Duke Kunshan, has over 170,000 alumni around the world. And the business term that I like to use when you start thinking about your applying to college is something called ROI. You hear this term a lot when businesses are talking about thinking about a project, taking on a project, delivering a new service, delivering a new product. They're going to invest in it. They want to know what is their return on that investment, the money they put into it, the resources they put into it, the people they put into it. And so when you apply to college, you're putting a lot of effort into the application process, and then you're putting a lot of effort into your 4 years to be successful in that 4 years. And you're probably thinking that your return on investment is you graduate, you get your degree, and you get a job. But another part of your return on investment is the alumni network that you're a member of for the rest of your life. And it can be so valuable personally and professionally. And the Duke Alumni Network is one of the most powerful, connected, passionate alumni networks you will ever see. And I attribute it to basketball, because basketball is a huge sport at Duke University. They are a top team all the time. They have the winningest coach in history of basketball, college basketball. And so everybody who goes to Duke ends up loving basketball, and it really brings them together. But it's also just about being a member of a really close-knit community, a collaborative community that cares about each other. All right. And so Duke Kunshan University, where do we get that name? Well, Duke, from Duke University, and then it's located in Kunshan, which is in a province called Jiangsu Province. And this is a highly successful economic hub of activity with Fortune 500 companies that are in Kunshan. It's near Shanghai. It's also near another city called Suzhou. You're seeing a part of Kunshan. By Chinese standards, it's a fairly small city, only about 1 million, about 1.5 million people. But it is a beautiful city, and again, just outside of Shanghai. So this is Shanghai. Many people know and have heard of Shanghai. So we are about a 20-minute high-speed train ride from Shanghai. Door to door, you're probably talking about leaving campus, 20 minutes to the train station, and then you travel by train, and then of course you're in Shanghai. And our students do spend a lot of time in Shanghai doing a lot of things that are fun, but also taking advantage of the companies and the industries through career-related activities. It's just there's a lot happening there, and our students have quick and easy access to it. We are also in the Yangtze River Delta, which means there's a lot of water towns in our area. And when you see pictures of our campus, you're going to see that we have a very large water feature right in the middle of our campus, because when we designed the campus, we wanted it to be reflective of the environment that we were in. So Zhejiang is one of the many water towns that is just beautiful, historic, and these are some of them are within 15, 20 minutes of drive from our campus, but they're spread throughout the Jiangsu province. Now, Durham, that's where I'm actually right now. That is in North Carolina, which is on the east coast of the United States, right on the coast. We have beaches on our state. We're about a 2.5-hour drive from the beach where I live in Durham, and in state of North Carolina, which is about a 4-hour drive south of Washington, D.C. So if you look at a map of the United States, we're really right in the middle of the east coast of the United States. Very beautiful, historic looking campus. And again, this is where our students have a chance to come in their junior year. So, boy, this is kind of an understatement now. With everything that's going on, the global challenges require a global education. What we're experiencing today is, the word unprecedented just constantly comes up. Our mission is to prepare students to be successful and lead in that global environment. You heard me talk about all the international students that we attract. Over 50 countries are represented at Duke Kunshan. And that's really important to us because our mission is founded on a concept we call rooted globalism. And what that means is, students come from many different countries and backgrounds, and they have their perspective is largely shaped by their culture, their background, and of course the experiences they've had. Culture playing a big role in that. We want our students to come into our community and share that perspective. We want your classmates to understand why you think the way you do. Why do you make the decisions the way you do? Why do you look at important issues and topics the way you do? So we want you to come in and bring that perspective, share it with your classmates. And I'm not just talking in classroom discussions. I'm talking about outside the classroom. There's a lot of engagement that happens outside the classroom. So bring it, share it, And then the other side of that is to be just as eager to learn from your classmates, because they also come from many different backgrounds and have different ways of looking at things and thinking about things and problem solving. And so your ability to look at things through other people's perspectives, knowing that you're probably not going to be able to find a quick answer, that it's going to involve some research and looking at things from different perspectives. This is how you build those critical thinking skills. So what we do when we bring these students in and we achieve that goal of bringing in students who are active and engaged and sharing and learning from each other, this is how we cultivate those engaged global citizens, because we already talked about they also want to have an impact. So they have a better understanding of why people think the way they do, other cultures, and this is how we prepare them to be successful in a global environment, whether it's in industry or working in academia, which many of our students will continue to pursue careers in academia. So let's talk about that curriculum that I've been mentioning, that interdisciplinary curriculum, and blending disciplines, and what that means is, no longer, the world is so much more complex than it used to be. Business problems just can't be solved by a businessman. Global health problems can't just be solved by global health experts. Education, the environment, all of these problems are so complex that they require those different perspectives, those different backgrounds, the different knowledge. So, let's use the pandemic as a perfect example. This is obviously, there's a health component to it, right? We have to find a vaccine. We have to do things to figure out how to solve, this virus. But it also has economic implications. Look at the impact it's having on the world economically, the impact it's having. Trying to get people to follow directions and guidelines when you're not in an authoritarian state like in the United States. It's really difficult to say everybody has to stay at home, but you've got to have really good policymakers and politicians and people who are able to influence. And so this is a perfect example of a global crisis that requires people from all different areas to be able to manage this, solve this in a way that hopefully we can get through this. It's not just people who are working in healthcare. It's not just the scientists who are going out and trying to discover that vaccine. It's how do we survive this from an economic standpoint. We have so many businesses in the United States, which I can speak to, which are not going to survive this. There's lots of efforts being made to help them survive, but this is a really difficult time. So that's an example, a really easy example of why it requires an interdisciplinary approach to problem solving. So you need people who have healthcare background, economic background, business background, public policy background, international relations background. All of these different backgrounds are going to be essential if we're going to be able to survive and move forward and make it through this. So in terms of what the classroom experience is like, and I think I talked a little bit more about this, it's very discussion based. We want to hear those perspectives. And so, students come in and they share their perspective. They debate in class. The topic comes up, the faculty wants to hear the students talk about it and why they think the way they do. And we talked about the critical thinking and problem solving skills. And so, we talk a lot about experiential learning at Duke Kunshan University, and that's because we believe that so much learning happens outside the classroom that complements what happens inside the classroom. Inside the classroom, our students learn the rules of biology or history or data science. They learn or economics, public policy. They're going to learn all the rules of those respective disciplines inside the classroom. But when you graduate, there's going to be a lot of other students out there who are also going to learn all the rules of biology or economics or data science. What really separates the best from the rest is those who can complement those skills with what we call soft skills. And I mean communication skills, cross-cultural skills, adaptability, flexibility, leadership, teamwork. Those are the skills that really separate the best from the rest. And when you bring those sets of skills and combine them with what you learn in the classroom, these are the future leaders. These are the high potentials. These are the people that companies are looking for, that graduate schools are looking for, because those are skills that are hard to train once you get into those environments. So we put a lot of emphasis on our students developing those schools in our global environment. And we put so much emphasis on it that our students are only in school, or in class, I should say, Monday through Thursday. Friday is for outside the classroom activities. Like I mentioned, it's doing research. It's all of the clubs and organizations and meetings that our students have. They're meeting with with their classmates, with administration, with faculty. They're getting involved in the community. They're doing career-related activities. They're developing all those other skills by getting involved, being engaged. When I talk about the types of students we attract, they're high engagement students. They're well-rounded and they have interests and they want to get involved. So we've built that into the schedule, Monday through Thursday in the class, Friday outside the class. Now, our faculty who designed our curriculum were a group of faculty. I think it was about 15 faculty who were based at Duke University. And they spent 3 years designing the Duke Kunshan University curriculum. They didn't want to just take Duke's very traditional, very established, great curriculum, very established. They didn't want to just take it and move it to China. They didn't think that made sense given our mission and our vision and the fact that our students were going to be in China. So they spent the 3 years developing this very interdisciplinary curriculum that, again, our students feel is very practical, because now if they want to pursue economics, for example, they understand the role that economics plays in many different sectors, whether it's in healthcare, or it's in working in a corporate environment, or it's working in a political environment. They really appreciate that they get to understand all the different ways they can apply what they've learned in economics, which opens up a lot of different options for them in their careers. So that was just one piece of it. One of the other things that our faculty had determined was, they had noticed when they were delivering their semester-long classes at Duke, that's a very traditional way to deliver classes. You have a fall semester where a student takes 4 to 6 classes. You have a spring semester, same. They take 4 to 6 classes. They had noticed that students might not put as much energy on 1 or 2 classes each semester for a variety of reasons. Maybe it was not important to them. They were focusing on their major courses. Or maybe they had courses that were more difficult. And so what they did was used a different system, and we were using it at the business school already. So we'd seen the success in the business school where I worked. And that is, instead of having 1 semester or 2 semesters across a year, they divided the semesters up into 2 terms or 2 sessions. So our classes take 4 terms or 4 sessions, and they take 2 to 3 classes per term or session. And that way they're really able to focus and immerse themselves on those 7-week sessions. I think it's important to also just mention that all classes are taught in English. You do not have to know any Mandarin to come to Duke Kunshan University. Many of our students have some level of Mandarin experience, but you do not have to know any Mandarin. Now, we will require that you take 2 years of Mandarin as a student so that you can make the most of your experience in China. And it's also a really important part. Language and culture are so closely tied together in China that by learning the language, building a foundation in language, it also gives you a better understanding of Chinese culture. So you'll hear me use this word engage frequently, and you'll also hear me talk about experience versus education. Our students are highly engaged. They get involved, and that is definitely a theme. And they have interests and passions, and they want to keep doing them as a student. So we have a pretty small student body. Actually, that's a typo on that cohort size at the bottom. That should be 250 to 500. So as I mentioned, we just finished recruiting our third class. So in our first class, we have about 250 students in our first class. We have about 300 or so in our second class. And in our third class, we'll probably be about 310 to 320. Eventually, we'll get up to 500 as a maximum size. We will never have a class size larger than 500. What that allows is for everybody to live on campus. We stay small. They have access to a lot of resources that they get to take advantage of, and they get to know each other. So small student body, fantastic student to teacher ratio, and I'll talk about the faculty at Duke Kunshan here shortly and why that small student teacher ratio is both important but also attractive to our faculty. Very discussion based, so it's not where you just have a faculty member standing in front of you talking at you. You're just taking notes. These are very engaged classrooms where lots of debate happens. A lot of people question, can you have academic freedom in China? Well, Duke University would not have come into China unless there was an agreement that anything is fair game in terms of conversation, topics in the classroom. That is just an essential part of our students' learning experience. We want them to be able to come in and talk about anything. And of course, you have a lot of Chinese students in the classroom, so you really get to hear a lot of great perspectives. So collaborative, that to me is such an important word, because when I think of one word, and people used to ask me this all the time when I was at the business school, if I could use one word to describe Duke University or the business school or my program, collaborative. People at Duke are friendly, and this DNA is over at Duke Kunshan University. People are friendly, they're supportive, they want to see each other succeed. As a student at Duke Kunshan, you also have access to all of the digital resources at Duke University's library, and actually many different libraries at Duke University. I know there's a lot of times we'll get the question, I know that Facebook and Google, and there's different websites that you can access in China. Well, we have what's called a VPN, or virtual private network, that everybody is automatically logged into on campus, which means you can access all those platforms that you would normally access, which allows you to stay in touch, not just with your friends and family in the ways that you normally would, but stay in touch with the world. So I already talked a little bit about the faculty. We attract a pretty special and unique student, a high engagement student. We attract a pretty unique faculty member as well. They're really excited about the opportunity to teach in this interdisciplinary curriculum, to have faculty across disciplines working together and teaching in one class. Maybe you'll have an economics teacher with a history teacher and a biology teacher, maybe all teaching in the same class. Giving you the different perspectives on particular topics. So they really appreciate that opportunity. They love the fact that we're a smaller community, because every student has a mentor that is assigned to them from the very first day, who helps them navigate their 4 years and really customize their experience, their their 4-year experience. They come from all around the world. They are eager to engage with our students, to get to know our students. And again, classes are all taught in English, but we do have several other languages that our students can pursue. So yeah, the faculty at Duke Kunshan, many of them, you'll have dinner with, you'll have lunches with, you will get to know them on a personal level. And that's something that really appeals to them as well. So here's a snapshot of our curriculum, or at least how we deliver our curriculum, I should say. So as I mentioned at the very start, we are a liberal arts and sciences university. What does that mean? We have majors that essentially span 3 different areas: natural sciences, social sciences, and arts and humanities. And I'll list those majors here shortly. We only have 3 core courses that our students take. And these core courses are what I refer to as global courses, global topic courses that span talking about China's role in the world, and all the different, you know, implications there. There's a course that talks just about the, you know, that looks at the different topics and issues that the world is facing. And then the last core course is around looking at leadership and the different approaches, West versus East leadership. So I think of these as global courses, and what they really facilitate is student discussion, because students are going to look at these topics, these issues from their own perspectives. And so these are really great for helping facilitate people, our students, understanding how culture impacts somebody's point of view. Very discussion based, as you can imagine. And at the same time, they're helping you start to figure out, well, what are you most interested in? Because we don't require our students to know what they want to do when they arrive on campus for their career. We want them to come in and explore. They're excited to explore interests and passions and majors, to the point where they don't even declare their major till the end of their second year. So these core courses also allow them to explore different topics and issues. And even if you think you know what you want to do for the rest of your life when you come in as a student at 17 or 18, in a liberal arts environment, more than half of those students are going to change their mind. That's the nature of exploration in a liberal arts curriculum. As I mentioned, we do require Mandarin, 2 years of Mandarin. And then our program, the way we deliver our courses is students start by taking what we call foundational courses. And these are courses where the coursework can apply to many different majors. And then that way you start working towards a major in, you know, and you get exposure to different areas. Eventually you're going to start taking what we call interdisciplinary and disciplinary courses. Interdisciplinary courses are going to be those courses that help you understand the broader implications of a topic, all the different ways economics might play that role in the different sectors I mentioned earlier. And then eventually, once you've made that commitment to economics, that's when you're going to do the deep dive into the disciplinary courses. And you'll take, you know, all the courses you could related to economics, and then you'll also customize it. You'll take courses, electives that will complement, depending on what that area is that you're interested in. Our students also get to take electives starting in their first year. So in that spirit of exploration and taking classes that are just completely different from the major that you might be pursuing. And again, your faculty mentor will help guide you and make suggestions for courses you might want to take based on your interest, or that it might complement something that you're pursuing as a major or interest. You'll also see in year 2 something called the signature work project. This is the ultimate experiential learning component to Duke Kunshan's curriculum. You work on this for 3 years. Students pick a topic that's important to them. They spend 3 years working on research, incorporating research, work in the community, their coursework, their internships, courses they take at Duke University when they go to Duke, taking all these different components of your experience, working towards a final project. So you pick the project that you care about, and then you get to deliver a final project at the end of your 4th year. And you get to deliver that in any format that you choose. So maybe you plan to be an academic and you want to write a highly academic paper, deliver your final project in an academic paper. Maybe you're one of our media and arts majors and you have terrific multimedia skills. Deliver it in a multimedia project format. Point is, you get to pick something that you really care about and do something about it. Focus on it. And so what's really valuable about this, beyond our students being able to have an impact in something they care about, is when you get into job interviews, when you get into graduate school applications, being able to talk about this project that you project managed. It allows you to talk a lot about things you care about, what you learned as a result, answer a lot of those behavioral questions, and it gives them some insight into what makes you tick, you know, makes you who you are. What do you really care about? So this is a really important part of our experience as well. So I'll leave this slide up here just for a couple minutes, but also know that all of this is available on our website. But these are our majors. 2 majors were recently added and will be available for the next class that we bring in. And those are the behavioral science major with neuroscience and psychology tracks, as well as our computation and design major with computer science, digital media, and social policy. So you'll see that all of our majors have multiple tracks. And that's part of that interdisciplinary approach. So that should be institutions and governance. Forgive me, I was working on this early this morning. That's institutions and governments on the right column. But you'll see they cover many different areas. In the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the arts and humanities. What you will not see is a business degree. And I will also let you know that Duke University does not have an undergraduate business degree. Their business school is only graduate programs. And you might be saying, well, how can I go into business? Well, that's another whole presentation I do. But just in a very short, in a nutshell, liberal arts universities are very successful at preparing students for careers in business. You know, the skills that I talked about, what you learn outside the classroom, the diverse skills that you build, being in a liberal arts environment, the problem solving, the critical thinking skills, the communication skills, the ability to work with people who are different from you. These are what businesses are looking for. Now, if you want to go into accounting, you probably need to look for an opportunity to take a lot of accounting classes. But if you're looking to go into business and don't know exactly how you want to go into business, liberal arts educations are very successful at preparing students for careers in business. And I half jokingly say, you know, to give you an example, a business can teach you how to read a spreadsheet, you know, how to do data analysis. They can teach you these types of skills. What they can't teach you is how to work well with people who are different from you, is how to you know, teach you critical thinking skills. And so they look to liberal arts universities to provide students who have those skills already in place. When you get hired straight out of college, your first job is not as a manager. Your first job, the way you're going to have the greatest impact on that organization is as a really good team player. So being able to work with people who come from different backgrounds, who have different perspectives, being able to work with people who are different from you, that's going to be the most valuable skill. Coming into a setting and knowing that people are going to be really good at different things and that you're eager to learn from them, that's a really valuable skill that businesses want to see. So if you're interested in business, don't feel like you can't go to a liberal arts university without a business degree, who doesn't have a business degree, and still have a very successful career in business. I graduated from a small liberal arts university in Texas. I got my degree in psychology, and I spent the first half of my career in business, starting up businesses before I transitioned to higher education halfway through my career. So I think I'm a pretty good example. And what the most important skill that I used in business, you know, coming out of undergrad, was just the ability to work with people who are different from me, and to be able to talk to people who are different from me. That was by far the most valuable skill I think that I used and continue to use. So we bring students from all around the world. So that means we better be able to support students who come from many different backgrounds. We have a lot of different resources that support our students, not just in the transition getting to Duke Kunshan and getting to China, but also once they come as a student, to make sure they're going to be successful. One office I'm going to highlight here is the office of undergraduate advising. They offer many different services, including tutoring if you need some additional support. They do some of the academic mentoring, but they also train our faculty to be really good academic mentors. They facilitate the signature project advising. They work with the Office of Career Services on putting together workshops and professional development programs and career counseling and job search training. They help, again, they work hand in hand with the Office of Career Services on putting together treks to Shanghai, where they get to visit with companies and learn about industries or specific companies, and a lot of corporate and other networking events that are on campus as well as off campus. So a very valuable resource. Some of the other offices we have that support our students, obviously, is the Office of Student Affairs and Student Services. We also have a Center for Language and Culture, which helps our students, in particular those where English is not their native language, get up that learning curve more quickly so that they can, when a student arrives on campus, they have to have a solid foundation in English. But listening skills is most important because you have to understand everything that's being said in the classroom. But speaking, reading, that will come. And, and they help facilitate to encourage that to you improve in that even faster. When you get to college, there's a lot of reading, and there's a lot of reading at Duke Kunshan, which is one of the most challenging things for students to adjust to. And not just our international students, but our US students as well, whose English is, that's their native language. The reason there's so much reading is because the faculty wants you to be prepared for that discussion that takes place inside the classroom. So why choose Duke Kunshan University? Here's just a couple testimonials, and one of them from one of our students from Kazakhstan. Again, they're attracted because they're looking for something different. That would be probably the most common answer I would get when I would ask a student, why did you pick Duke Kunshan University? I was looking for something different. Students who are coming to Duke Kunshan, they know that the world is changing, it's changing fast, and they don't want just a traditional education that's been established for 100 years. They want a practical, innovative, an experience, a curriculum that is prepared for the world today and prepared for the world that we don't even know what it looks like. And I used to always say when I would do a presentation in China, I would hold up the phone. I would hold up the smartphone. In China, some of you may know that the phone, they do everything through their phone. Not just paying for things, but buying things, paying all their bills. I mean, everything you could possibly think that they would buy or need to pay, they use their phone for. And so I hold it up in China, and I would say, 10 years ago, now I say 12 or 15 years ago, did you ever imagine the role that this small device would play in your daily lives? Because 10 or 12 years ago, there were no smartphones. And I say, so think about how this one piece of technology absolutely changed the way people live, shop, travel, make reservations, do everything, engage with each other. Think about how much it changed. Well, we can't even imagine what's that technology going to be 10 years from now? What's the world going to look like a year from now? We just don't even know. So our mission is to prepare students for that world. So what are the types of students that we do attract? They are, oops, sorry. I'm just trying to minimize something here. There we go. So, our students, they're high achievers, right? And that means they perform well inside the classroom, but they're also very involved outside the classroom. They're well-rounded. They are independent thinkers, but they also don't come into our community thinking they know everything. They know that they're going to have an opportunity to learn from other people who know things that they don't know, who look at the world very differently. So they're eager to expand the way they think as well. They're open-minded. So in that spirit, they're open-minded. They're absolutely adventurous. Not many people just wake up one morning and say, I think I'll go to China. They absolutely have an interest in China, the role it's playing in the world. They have an interest in the US. They want a truly global experience. And as you've heard me say, they are highly engaged. They don't want to just come into our community, move from classroom to cafeteria to library, back to their dorm. They want to get involved outside the classroom. They have interests and passions they want to continue to pursue. And when I talk about the application, I'll talk a little bit about what we look for in that outside the classroom type engagement. So I think I mentioned over 50 nationalities are in our class, 50 nationalities are represented in our first 3 classes across 6 continents. So that should be 3 classes now because we've added, I think, 13 new countries in this current class. And that is something that's really important to us. It helps us achieve our mission. What are those? You know, Chinese students is the largest population, of course, with U.S. students being second, but we're seeing rapidly growing communities from Morocco, from Russia, from Italy, from Kazakhstan. We have a great community with the 4 additional students who have currently committed to this next class. We have 8 students now from Kazakhstan, which is super exciting. We're growing students from Georgia, from Uzbekistan. So we're continuing to get more students from Central Asia, which is an area that I'm really focused on. We of course have students from all around Asia. We have students from Latin America, from across Africa. As you can imagine, with the One Belt and One Road, or one belt initiative, one belt road initiative, forgive me, OBER. As many of you heard, I mean, Kazakhstan is a very important country in that economic vision that China has. So many countries, many students from countries like Kazakhstan, other countries in Central Asia and Africa, and all along the Belt Road, they're attracted to Duke Kunshan because they want to understand how to do business in China. They want to learn the Chinese perspective and Chinese culture because they want to have an impact in their careers in their home country. And so they know that if they get this type of insight, including learning the ability to speak Mandarin, that's going to position them really well to create more win-wins for their own country because of this most significant economic vision in China's recent history. So obviously a lot of countries are attracted because of that. A lot of students from various countries are attracted because of that. So this is what a dorm looks like. This is one of our dorms, and this is actually half of it. And I wish I had more pictures to show you. And maybe at the end I'll try to bring up some other pictures. But our dorm rooms, the residence halls, are very nice on campus. Many of our parents who would come to campus would say they were too nice for our students. I disagree. They're very beautiful. This is just the bedroom. There's another floor that has a living room, and each suite, if you will have 4 to 6 beds. And then one living space on a different floor with like a living area where TV, couch, and all of that. So they're very nice dorms. So that's why this does a little bit of a disservice. Of course, every student has their own desk and work area. And so we have 2 residence halls currently on campus. And I'll show you the new construction that we're also building that will allow us to eventually have 2,000 students living on campus. So students don't have to figure out where they're going to live in China. We want them to all live on campus so they can be around each other, learn from each other. So of course we have dining areas as well. We have a halal dining area. We have student services that also includes counseling for wellness, success, that of course works with our Office of Academic Advising. We have health services on campus. And so lots of different resources to make sure that our students have a great experience living on campus and in China. So student experience, they tend to just get very involved. As I've mentioned, that's one of our downstairs in one of the buildings. They get involved in the different clubs and activities. They play sports. They play music. They really enjoy exploring with each other. They explore the surrounding area. They explore China. They like to go out and explore even beyond China. It's very easy to travel and get around through China with high-speed trains, and fairly inexpensive to travel around both China and even other parts of Asia. So studying on campus, that's something I mentioned at the beginning. In students' junior year, they have a chance to travel to the U.S., to North Carolina, where they can spend up to a summer and a semester at Duke University's campus in Durham. So what does that allow them to do? It allows them to build their network. something we talked about earlier. They get to take classes with different students who are based at Duke University. They get to meet new faculty, new staff. They get to broaden that network, both from a professional standpoint, from just having fun as well. Of course, they start and end at Duke Kunshan. So it's just in that junior year, during that semester and summer, that they have that opportunity. So I mentioned North Carolina. It's on the east coast of the United States. This is basically the state, and Durham is right in the middle of it. And it's in an area called Research Triangle. It's a highly academic area. Lots of businesses are here. You have the three probably most major universities all within this triangle area, within about 20 miles of each other, with Duke University, of course, and then you have University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which is the premier state university, and then you have North Carolina State University, which focuses more on agriculture, and so it has its own focus. But these are three very elite universities all within this area, which means it attracts a lot of businesses to set up shop here. Technology, biotech are very significant industries here. Now, Duke Kunshan University, you heard me say, was launched in 2014. So it's state of the art. All of the facilities are the most current design, cutting edge. We are very unique in that we are actually what's called a LEED certified campus, which means we are as environmentally friendly as you can possibly be. We had to meet a lot of standards to be able to call ourselves LEED certified. Means we're trying to minimize our footprint as a campus. I actually saw somebody asked a question. I have a list of questions about ecology. Do we have ecology? You saw we have several environmental science tracks, but we don't just talk about it, we are living it. It's, universities in China are very safe in that, you have to have ID cards to even get on campus. I lived in China for the last 2 years with my two daughters, teenage daughters. I feel it is one of the safest places that I've ever been or lived. The highest technology, the greatest technology, most current technology, I should say, in commuting, communications. The student housing is of the highest quality. We have dining facilities. And just across the street is an area called Dayu Bay, which is a European style village with shops and coffee shops and restaurants, and the student community center is over there. And then just getting around Kunshan is pretty easy. We have those bikes that you can rent right across the street from both of our entrances, but also with just the public transportation. So very affordable to get around. So we are building our campus in 2 phases. Phase 1 is complete. The last part of phase 1 that was opened last year was the innovation building, which includes more classroom space, the labs for our different sciences, including biology, chemistry, physics. It includes our artificial intelligence, our AI lab, and many other research labs for students who are interested in that area. So phase 1 was completed last year, and phase 2, which I'll show a picture here towards the end, is scheduled to be completed in the end of 2021. And you'll see just how grand the campus will actually be once it's completed. So you heard me talk a little bit about Kunshan. So this is just a couple of shots of Kunshan. You've got, and it looks very modern, but there's also a very old and traditional side of China. And that's pretty much every city you visit in China. It seems many of those cities are now in that kind of period of transition. So it's a high, it's very accessible to Shanghai, which is about 20-minute high-speed train right away. Suzhou, which is another city about a 30-minute drive away, is also home to many Fortune 500 companies across Suzhou, Kunshan, and Shanghai. Our students do like to explore the world as well. They are interested in exploration. So it really, it's easy access to get to the airports in Shanghai if you're interested in going beyond China, and you can explore, just kind of see how far everything is. Seoul, Tokyo, Manila, all of them are just a fairly short flight away. Now I see we've got some people jumping off, so I'll just let you know I'll be getting to financial aid here shortly, as well as our application process. And I won't have to spend too much time on that, but I'll give you some valuable details there. So, I already talked about these are the type of students who are attracted to us. And so when you put together your application, you are telling us who you are, what you care about, and why Duke Kunshan University is the right university for you. You're demonstrating that you have a variety of interests, well-rounded, and that you're up to the academic challenge of a rigorous and elite university. So if we admit you, you've convinced us that you're a good fit for our university. But you still have to make sure that Duke Kunshan is the right fit for you. And so what we've done the last 3 years, although this year we had to make it virtual due to the pandemic, we would fly our international students to visit us on campus so that they could experience the campus, see China, many of them for the first time, meet their future classmates, meet their faculty, sit in sample classes, really just see and experience Duke Kunshan for yourself. So this happens, we make our offers for our last big round, regular decision, towards the end of March, second half of March, and then towards the end of April, we hold this event. And then it helps our students make their determinations by the beginning of May if they want to come and join our community. All right, I know this is a really important part of everybody's decision-making process. And so, we are an elite university and our students are earning a Duke University degree. So tuition is Duke University tuition, which is, it's going to be very expensive looking to you when you see it. And as you continue to explore Duke Kunshan University. But we do offer substantial amounts of financial aid and scholarship to help our students be able to achieve their dreams. Every student who applies to Duke Kunshan is automatically considered for merit-based scholarship. And what that means is you put together your application, we review it, and as an admissions committee, we're like, oh, we really love this student. We're going to give you some money to make it easier for you to come. But we actually hand out a lot more what I call need-based aid. And what this means is you're going to fill out an application for us, and you're going to give us insight into how much can you afford to pay for your college education. And then if we admit you, we are going to do our best to meet that demonstrated need. So if you tell us you need X amount, if we admit you, we are going to try to give you that X amount so we don't put you in a difficult position. Now, last year, actually the last couple of years, about 80% of our incoming international students received some level of aid. About a third of our international students received full tuition aid packages. So we really do put a lot of effort into making our students' educational dreams come true. So we do use the common application, and I'm going to get to the questions that some of you asked as well here that talk about kind of the application requirements. But right now, we use the Common App, which is an application online platform that many U.S. universities use. And to submit an application, you do have to take the SAT or ACT. We're going to get insight into your inside the classroom performance. That's your grades and transcripts. We're going to get recommendations written on your behalf, teachers, counselor. We're going to get 2 essays that you're going to write. And then we're going to get that insight into extracurricular experiences. What are you doing outside the classroom? They can be social, sports, recreational, also academic achievements. I see a lot of our students who come from Kazakhstan and other countries in the area who have some strong academic honors and achievements, in terms of the Olympiads. And so we'll look at all of this, and that just gives us a sense into what is the student interested in, where are their talents, what do they enjoy doing. What you will see is not on this list is we do not require an IELTS or a TOEFL. We don't require a test for your English, but we do interview. We believe interviewing is a better way to assess your language skills. So we will interview you in order to do that. So this is what the campus will look like when it's completed. If you can see my cursor move, you can see in the upper left-hand corner what I'm circling is essentially phase 1 that's completed. And then this is phase 2, which is currently under construction and will be completed on schedule sometime in 2021, probably in the second half of 2021. You will, all of these right here, I'm hoping you can see the cursor. If not, in the middle, kind of upper, where you see those 8 buildings that look very similar, those are the residence halls where our students will all live. Right now, their residence halls are over here and over here. And then, of course, you see all the different other facilities there. I think that's all I have as far as the presentation goes. I do have a list of questions here, but I'll also look to see if anybody has asked some questions yet. I think we may have some questions already being asked. But what I want you to see here is my name and my email. I want you to know that I want to answer your questions. I want to help you put together a strong application. I want you to understand what we're looking for in a strong application. So I absolutely welcome you contacting me. And in fact, I will get the list, I believe, from Russel after this, and I will email everybody just so you have my email as well. And then if you decide you want to learn more about Duke Kunshan, you can always reach out to me. I can talk to you about our application. You still have to go and do the work, but I'm going to help. I'm going to really make sure you understand what we look for. Now, we've also got a couple great initiatives that we're launching this summer in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're offering both public virtual information sessions, although you've pretty much just sat through one. But what's even cooler, I think, is we have students who are going to be leading virtual campus visits. And what that means is you are going to have an interactive webinar presentation with one of our current students who is essentially going to walk you around campus through photos. They're going to give you insight. It's going to be an interactive tour. We cap the number very small. Only 6 to 8 people can register per campus tour, so that you can talk to the student if you like, ask questions while they show you photos of the different parts of campus. They show you photos with students in them, so you get to see what it's like to really be a student at Duke Kunshan and get the student experience. I know that that's one of the most important parts of the decision-making process and the research process for you, is really getting an understanding of what it's like to be a student at Duke Kunshan. So we'll be launching these virtual campus visits the beginning of July, which you can register. I'll make sure you get alerted to them, and you can sign up and then sit through a conversation with one of our current students who will be excited to host you, talk to you, answer your questions while you get to see photos, pictures of all the different areas of campus, but also what they do off campus. All right, so I'm going to go up to the questions where it looks like we have a few. All right, so the first question actually that I see, but I need to scroll up. Will deadlines for applications change in the coming year? I do not believe we will be changing our deadlines at this point, but let me also just preface everything by saying none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what the next year looks like, but I'm anticipating that we will have the same deadlines. We have an early decision deadline, which is in late October, early November, and that's for students who know Duke Kunshan is absolutely their first choice. We have a very high admission rate in that round because students put together great applications, and they've convinced us that Duke Kunshan is a great fit for them. So that's our early decision deadline. That's a smaller deadline, of course. And then we have a regular decision deadline traditionally, that's the first week in January. So right now, that is still our plan, but fair to say, nothing's set in stone because we know the world is very uncertain right now. But that's our current plan. So now I'm going to the top. So we have, what about a student who does well, a smart student who performs well under most circumstances, but has a poor GPA and average SAT scores. What would you recommend the student do to make himself more likely to be accepted to college? So I'm going to assume you mean Duke Kunshan, but I think this applies to many universities. Most universities take what they call as a holistic approach to the application review. And you can't not, you know, when you look at a school profile, they give you ranges. They give you ranges for GPA and they give you ranges for SATs or ACT scores. And so there's students below that and there's students above that. So you have to see where do you fit in. If both of your scores are significantly lower than their ranges, then that's going to be what I'm going to call a reach school. That's going to be a tough school for you to get into. You're going to have to really blow them away with the rest of your application, your essays, your recommendations, your achievements. You can offset that for schools. You can offset that for DKU. I've definitely seen, you know, in past, our SAT is pretty intimidating. I think our average 50% range was around 1410 to 1530 or 1550 was our middle 50% range. But I absolutely saw students who were admitted with SATs in the 1100s. We do not have a SAT minimum. And our GPA range, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it was probably around middle 50% was 3.4 to 3.8. So that GPA is pretty close to in there. But again, kind of going to the second part of the question, what would you do to recommend? How do they make themselves be more competitive? It's really do well on those other elements of the application. Really do your homework. Really make sure you can convince the university that you're going to be a great member of their community. You're going to be a contributor, and you've got things that you do excel at. You have achievements. You have activities that you're really passionate about and that you're going to get involved and bring value to their community. So an important question, do you offer financial aid that covers full cost of attendance? We do not at Duke Kunshan University. We offer, as I mentioned, we're very generous with our full tuition aid packages, but we do require that students pay their own living expenses. Now, the nice thing about studying in China is it's considerably cheaper than studying in many places in the United States. Our cost of living, when I have talked to students, on our website, if you look at our cost of living, it breaks out to about 11 to 12,000 US dollars a year. But when I talk to our current students, they'll tell me that cost of living is probably in a range from about 6 to 7,000 to that 12,000. And it really comes down to the spending habits of a student. And one of the big factors in that is how many times do you travel home? That's a big additional expense, obviously. What's really cool is we have some nice programs for students who don't travel home. We have a host family program where local families, our students can go live with them during holidays if campus shuts down, which is only a couple times a year, where they can't be in the residence halls. And that's a really enriching program for our students. So those that don't want to travel home, you know, for whether they just want to stay in China or it's too much of a financial burden, they can stay with a host family and there's no cost associated with that. So one of the things I will definitely advise all of you to do is to definitely connect with our current students. We have current students from Kazakhstan. I know Rushan knows some of those students, so you can definitely get in touch with them and get the real story about what it's like financially to be at Duke Kunshan and what are those expenses really like. So I think everybody, hopefully everybody has my email. Take down my email real quick because I'm going to put it on another page for Yulia here who wanted to see another page. So that's rwdavis@duke.edu. Really an easy email. And of course, you can always get it from Roshan as well. So I'm going to go back to some pages here. Give me 1 second. Hang on. What do we look for? So that's that page. I don't know if the text box is in your way. I'm going to move that text box. Has there ever been an application that stood out to you as being the best one you've ever seen, and why? And have you ever seen one that's been the worst one you've ever seen, and why? You know, I've seen so many great applications. Okay. I can probably mention a couple worse ones, but I won't go into that. I'll mention that later, but I've seen a lot of great applications. And really the way I talk about it is, and if you heard me talk about kind of the general application tips presentation I did several weeks ago, admissions officers like myself, we don't get really excited about high SAT scores. We don't fall in love with an applicant because they have a really high GPA or they took all of the toughest classes. We fall in love with students and get really excited about a student when we feel like we get to know them as a person. And I'm talking about Duke Kunshan University. We take such a personal approach. We're looking for such a special student that when we see that student, when they can really help us understand what they're passionate about, why they want to study at Duke Kunshan University, that's who we get really excited about. And we see a lot of those because we're a very unique university. So people who are applying, students who are applying to my university, they're applying to it for a pretty particular reason, that it is something that is special to them. And so that's why I see so many of those applications. So really help us understand why our university is the right university for you. How excited you are to learn from others, how excited you are to share your perspective. And we have a really good understanding of your perspective because you've communicated it to us. You've communicated it to us through your essays. Your teachers, and if you have a counselor, they've helped you share your story. So we really feel like we got to know what makes you tick, what you're passionate about. And we know that you're going to be a great and contributing member of our community. Those are the ones we get excited about. Now, has there ever been an application that stood out as being the very worst? I've definitely seen some, and it's usually because a student made poor choices. There's a couple of different ones. The one that's, I wouldn't call it the worst application I've ever read, but applications where we don't understand why on earth they're applying to our university. That's a pretty bad application. That's somebody who did not do their homework. That's somebody who clearly didn't realize we put so much value on telling us why studying at Duke Kunshan is the right fit for you. So when we have zero understanding of why they're interested, including being in China for any period of time, that's a bad application. You really have to make sure we understand. I mean, this is a good time. We look for students who want to make a difference. They're interested in learning from others. They're high achievers. They're open-minded. They're adventurous. They're fascinated with China and the world. They can tell. We really get to know what they care about. If they don't do any of this, then that's a bad application. Now, I do see people just make poor choices. They may cuss. They do a terrible job of proofreading their essays, and they don't really tell us anything insightful in their essays. We have a specific essay that you have to write for us about why our university, and essentially it's tell us why we're a great fit and what you're going to bring to our community. If you don't answer that question and answer what we're asking, that's not a good application as well. But worry more about, we're so transparent. I'm so transparent about what we want to see in your application, that if you do just a little bit of homework, you should be able to at least put together a decent application. If you really do your homework, understand what we look for in the application, and then get engaged with our students. We're going to make it easy through the virtual campus visits, and then you'll have a student you can always go talk to. Through the current Kazakh students we have, talk to them, do your homework. If you do your homework and you get excited about Duke Kunshan and know why you want to come to Duke Kunshan, you're probably going to put together a pretty good application. All right, if the student, so this is, if a student is already very proficient at Chinese, or even fluent at Chinese. If they're fluent in Chinese, both reading and writing, they do not have to take 2 years of Mandarin. So that answers that question. If a student has a proficiency level already in Mandarin, we're not going to make them start over. We'll put them in the appropriate level class. So what if student has really cool stats, good extracurriculars and essays, basically puts together a good application, but doesn't show a big interest in Duke Kunshan, will university reject him? It's hard to say. If we have a lot of really great applications that also have all those cool things that you mentioned, and we only have a limited number of spots available, you might not bubble up. You might not make the cut. We put so much value on fit at Duke Kunshan. My advice is show us why we might be the right university for you. I can tell you that we've absolutely admitted students who didn't make the strongest case for Duke Kunshan University, and we felt like there was good potential for them to be a good fit for us, but I wouldn't risk it. That's a funny question. I wouldn't risk it. I would definitely, if you're going to apply to Duke Kunshan, you're going to go through the effort of writing our essay that's specific to us. Just put a little effort into demonstrating why we might be a good fit for you. And that will certainly, hopefully remove that possibility of being rejected. What is the most played sport on Duke Kunshan? I'm sure it won't surprise you. Football, soccer in the U.S. Just because to me, it's like the most international sport. I will also add badminton. Badminton's a big one. Got some really good badminton players given that we have a significant Chinese population, and there are students from other countries, obviously, that play badminton as well. Do you have quotas for regions? Do Chinese students have any advantages in China? So there's actually two separate application processes, because in China, there's something called the Gaokao. So all of our Chinese students have to take the Gaokao. And of course, our international students do not, and that includes our US students. So you are not, the international application pool is completely separate from the Chinese pool, just due to that process. And the Gaokao doesn't happen until June, traditionally. This year it's been pushed back to July because of the pandemic. So you don't have to worry about, you're not competing with Chinese students. Has an interview with a candidate ever ruined his or chance of acceptance, and why? Well, there's a couple things. One is, if we're not confident a student can be successful due to their language skills, we're not going to admit somebody. We're not going to admit somebody and put them in jeopardy of not being successful. So language, if their language skills aren't where they need to be, that's a reason that we might not consider admitting somebody. And then again, self-awareness, making poor choices with responses. And I will use a very specific example. It was in our first year, and, I was conducting an interview with a student, and some of you have heard me talk before, know that one of my favorite interview questions is, tell me about a leader you admire and what it is you admire about them. And I open it up. I say it can be anybody. It can be someone you know, someone you don't know. It can be a political figure. It can be your parent. It can be anybody. And one of the students I was interviewing said Adolf Hitler, and then tried to say why, and threw in the line at the end, oh, I know there was a lot of other stuff that wasn't great, and to me, that was just a poor choice. And why do we look at self-awareness and poor choices? Why do we consider that in the application process? Because eventually you're going to be a member of our community. You're going to be wearing the Duke University and Duke Kunshan University badge. You are going to be talking to recruiters. You're going to be out there representing us. And we don't want somebody out there representing us who makes those types of choices. So that is a very concrete example of what I thought was just a very poor choice in a response. All right. So let me go. I don't think I see any more live questions, and I appreciate those of you who have stuck through it throughout. So one of the questions I've been getting, and I've seen it several times, is what about the application requirements, SAT, ACT, given the uncertainty around having access to those tests sites, will it be required? That is a to be determined, is what I'm going to call that. As it stands right now, those are still required. Now, If somebody is in a country, and this was already a policy for us, even if we maybe didn't put it out on the website, if somebody is in a country where they don't have access to be able to take these tests, then they can email us and we will consider that waiver. And we have waived that requirement. But if you have access to those and we are requiring it, then it will still be a requirement. But again, world is uncertain. We don't know. To be honest, in the United States, I'm expecting another big spike in the virus later this summer because I think the people are getting too loose in how they're staying at home. So we don't know what the world looks like. We don't know if College Board is going to be able to continue to have these tests. They may put them all online. There's a lot of different variables involved there. So just don't know the answer to that question. But if things don't change and it's just a factor of whether or not a student has access to be able to take the test, then they can apply for a waiver of that test. Let's see. Okay, the first couple questions related to that. So another one, how do I stand out as a student who is applying for exchange or transfer? So at this point, we actually don't allow students to transfer into our program. Our curriculum is so unique that all students have to start together. I have had students, including one from Kazakh, who has what I call Kazakhstan, who has what I call a non-traditional educational background. Who had started college elsewhere, had actually gone through years there, but ended up coming and joining Duke Kunshan earlier, essentially starting over. So yeah, if you're going to join Duke Kunshan, you're going to start as a freshman. So yeah, there is no transferring. So could applicants send all requirements by themselves? So basically without asking school counselor or other officials. There is some documentation we're going to need from your school. We do recognize that all schools don't have counselors, so we don't make that a requirement that a counselor writes an evaluation for you, but somebody from your school will need to submit your transcript, and then teacher evaluations, teacher recommendations. And I have some advice for that. And if you're really interested in talking to me about that, I can give you some guidance on how to get those. I'm sure Education USA, the representatives there, can also give you insight. They've been experiencing this for a long time, how to go about and get those materials. So, this is a question I get a lot. It's kind of like this question, which is, how do I stand out? How do I make myself look different from maybe other students from my country or even my city or even my school? And that's where I say two things. One, worry about things you have control over and don't worry about things you don't. But more importantly, each one of you is unique. And you're unique because the experiences that have happened to you only happen to you. Your interests and passions are yours. And that's how we get to know you as a person. And that's why we admitted a pretty sizable group of students from Kazakhstan this past year. And some of them from the same city, obviously. And I think maybe even some of them from the same school. So, when we get to know you through the application and what really makes you tick, who you are, what your interests, passions are, what you're going to bring to our community, you're different. I can promise you. So each one of you is different. Know that. It just requires that you do some self-reflection, which is that whole other presentation I did a few weeks ago, to discover what is unique about you and how do you bring that forward using the different components of the application. Okay, so what is the minimum score of SAT? We don't have a minimum. I think I mentioned that already. We don't require SAT subject tests. But if you want to take those, and many students do because they're applying to several colleges, it just gives us more insight into your academic profile. And I absolutely see really strong students in math and science, as you can imagine, or physics from Kazakhstan. And there's other countries as well that have real strengths in this area. And they tend to knock those those subject tests out of the ballpark, as we say. It's a baseball reference, meaning they do really well. And so that just gives us that additional insight that they're really strong at that subject, but not required. It's just additional insight into your academic profile. Yeah, COVID impact, the virus impact on application. I think I've talked about that. Right now, things are, we're envisioning things as they've been in the past, but if you know anything about Duke Kunshan University, you know that we were one of the first universities to really have to adapt to the virus situation because we were in China. There was a great Washington Post article that came out about how we were able to convert our campus to online in 3 weeks. And that was largely due to Duke University and the experience they had. And so we've been really good at communicating with our current students, our admitted students over this past several months, and really adjusting to the changing environment. That, we preach that, right? Adaptability, flexibility, being able to succeed in a rapidly changing global environments. Well, we have to be able to do that as well. So that said, things could change for us, and we will continue to monitor the situation. And of course, you've got my email, so you can always reach out to me. You can always reach out to me and ask me if anything has changed. So what kind of extracurricular activities can I take up? So I know that there's schools that don't offer a lot of those traditional extracurricular activities. And so students get really worried about not being able to put things down there and fill that section out. So keep in mind that when we talk about activities outside the classroom, they don't have to be at school. They can be things that you're involved in outside of school. Those absolutely count. It's those academic achievements that you have been involved in, those Olympiads or other competitions. They all fair game. They all count, and you can absolutely include those. But again, we're not looking for a super long list. We just want to know what are those things that are most important to you. So if you've got only a few things, but you have deep involvement and commitment and clear reasons for them, that's going to be really valuable to us. And sometimes a student will have a lot of what I call one-offs. Just, I did this for a small period of time. I did this for a short period of time. Kind of a longer list, but things that they only did once or twice. I encourage you to write all those things down and look for themes across those things. Maybe the theme is you like to explore and try new things, but try to find what that theme is so that you can highlight that and give more insight to that theme. And help us understand why you were engaged in all of those different activities, but maybe for a short amount of time. But if you can just identify one or two things that you're really passionate about and give us insight into that, that's valuable to us. So don't worry so much if you don't have a lot of those typical extracurricular activities that are being facilitated by your school. Anything that you're doing outside of school also counts. And we also take into consideration when a student has to work to help support their family, if they have to take care of siblings, you can put these things down in our list as well. And that just gives us insight into the amount of time that you have to dedicate to these other commitments, which we also say, we know these are very important commitments. And sports counts, again, recreation counts, academic counts, anything that you're doing outside the classroom counts. Let's see, I'm still looking at the list of questions that were sent to me in advance. I think I've hit most of them. So basically, here's another one about grades. So if a student starts off and isn't very strong in their first year or two of high school, but then their grades trend upwards, that is something we'll definitely take into consideration. So we definitely look at upward trends, right? Not everybody gets their legs under them. Not everybody starts out strong, and it takes some time, and there's different reasons for that. And you can explain that to us. Help us understand what happened. And then the question is, if a lot of universities do cancel SATs or don't make that a requirement, then they're only going to be able to look at your GPA. right? I mean, essentially, these are components that make up what we call your academic profile. Right now, what makes up your academic profile is obviously your transcript, you know, your grades, your test scores. For schools that require TOEFL or IELTS, that's also part of your academic profile. And then your academic achievements, those competitions and your success in those kind of they also play a role both in academic profile and outside the classroom extracurricular activities. So if they have less to work with, then of course they're going to put more weight on what they do have to work with. All right, so I think I've hit most of those that I didn't cover already. We do super score. So I saw that, and I think that's all the questions. So unless anybody types one in very quickly, I am going to say thank you very much for sticking with me, for that dozen of you or so who made it all the way to the end. It was certainly my pleasure to spend this time with you. You have my email, so please don't hesitate to reach out. I am very happy to be a resource for you. And I hope that I will be able to travel again one day. And I don't know if I'll be able to travel in the fall, but I can guarantee you I'll be back in Kazakhstan once I'm able to travel again to meet many of our great students there. So continue to do your homework, continue to learn more. If what I told you today was makes you want to learn more, that's my goal. And if you walk away from this presentation going, I don't think it's the right presentation, I don't think it's the right school for me, that is absolutely fine too, because your goal is to find the best university for you. And there's probably more than one. But my hope is you walked away wanting to learn more. Ask me questions, reach out to our current students. I'll make sure you all know when that campus visit, virtual campus visit goes live, so you can sign up for that and then talk to a current student, have a great experience learning about the student experience while they give you a tour of our campus. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for staying with me all this time. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.